Hey, and we're back to you with Tamela. And I have I guess I'm just gonna call you my co-host at this
Oh,
point.
I got it. I got the spot, y'all. Y'all heard it. Y'all heard it. Y'all heard it. I got the spot.
You got your temporary spots,
It's
but
temporary.
it's
Hey, I'll
temporary.
take it. I'll take it.
You still working.
Sometimes interim coaches end up being head coaches.
I
And
like
so
that.
you just take what you can get.
That's
I'm
it.
cool with that. I'm cool. Thank
Yeah.
y'all. Can I just have this moment just to thank God?
Have this
Can I
moment,
really
do
have this
whatever you
moment?
want to do.
Thank you, sweet Lord
Oh my
Jesus.
goodness.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
not
you.
that desperate. You're not that desperate. But yeah, I
I'm
got
desperate for you, baby. I'm desperate.
Okay. If
Ain't
that's
too proud to beg. You know this.
Okay.
That was the smile, y'all. We talked about we were dating when I said hello to her. How you like the class? That smile that she
That's
got
a
on her face.
smile.
That was the smile.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll keep smiling. Keep smiling. Keep me
Please.
smiling. Keep me smiling. So yeah, we're back and we're talking about intimacy in marriage. We call it worship.
Worship, y'all.
I call it worship.
Praise is what I do.
But at some point in our marriage, we came up with what we call the 48-hour rule.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we share with everyone just kind of our dating journey, how we kind of waited until the big day to go all in. And I remember there were like some vows that you said. Like, we were like going in. He was like, wait, I got some vows on my phone. I got to pull my vows. Got to pull. I was like, oh, it's another set of vows.
I did.
So there were another set of vows before we went all in.
Mm-hmm.
But then I guess we were extremely anxious to make it I'm gonna say make magic.
Make it official. We had to make it official.
Had to make it official.
It was a long time waiting.
That was a long time waiting.
It was hard not to go to the justice of the peace.
Very hard not to go to the justice of the peace.
We still haven't celebrated our reception.
We haven't. We should do that.
We should.
We should really go and
bust
have
up
another
out of that thing.
Run it.
They said, "Here come the Davises." I remember them clapping, and we cut that cake, and boom, what a limousine at.
We're out. So yeah, intimacy is something that we talk about quite a bit. I feel like it's an uncomfortable conversation for a ton of individuals, but
I don't get that. But
I mean,
you do.
I do. I understand it. Mm-hmm. Like for some people, it's discomfort that comes around discussing sex and inside of a marriage. I feel like sometimes it's more uncomfortable to discuss sex inside of marriage versus the other way. Like,
you think so?
I think so.
Why?
I don't know why.
Help me understand. Help me and the people that don't understand.
Well, I think because there's such a unique relationship with your spouse, it makes it uncomfortable sometimes to have conversations with each other. But I think it's also uncomfortable to talk about it amongst your peers or your parents or whoever may be around to
listen. You married. Y'all
I
busting.
get.
I hear what you're saying, but that goes to another conversation that we was having. We're not gonna get on this one. We should probably bring this around now that I'm while I'm interim co-host. Don't get this to the next co-host.
Okay.
But you should talk about being married but still wearing the mask.
Yes.
Like if you're still uncomfortable about having certain conversations with your spouse, then there may be things that you're still guarded about.
Yeah.
And you're wearing the mask around your spouse. But that's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother conversation, whole nother episode. But what I do want to touch on is, although we were celibate, although we had both engaged in physical activity prior to coming to Christ.
We was knocking boots before we got married. Yeah.
Not with each other.
No, but I'm saying
yes.
Pre-Christ.
Pre-Christ.
We was out here in the streets.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean,
we was out here. Okay. It's okay.
Okay. So there was experience that we'd had before our initial relationship. And so although we had a ton of boundaries around us not, coming together before marriage, we'd already had those experiences. So that led us to have some really unique conversations around intimacy before we even got married, which I don't know. I don't really know how to gauge that. I would say if you are two individuals who have not been, I don't even want to say that. I'm not gonna even.
If you
say
haven't had,
that.
if you haven't had sex, how can you have conversations around sex?
Yeah, I
and
feel like
whatever?
that's kind of awkward and difficult. But you know what? Let's disregard that.
No, that's not. Let's not, because that's not most people's situation. So let's talk about the real.
So I just feel like there has to be some conversations had, because there has to be boundaries that you put in place. There are some things that you have to discuss that you're open to or you may not be open to. And so I feel like we had those conversations around, like, these are some lines that absolutely can't be crossed. These are some non-negotiables. These are some things that I would like to experience with you that I haven't experienced before. And so there was just a ton of conversations around sex, knocking boots. Like we had those conversations just because we wanted to go in and not be like, oh, no. Oh, yeah. Just kind of have like some ground rules for the first time, of course. And so from there, I feel like we were just excited to be together, just excited to be together and to really explore. But then we started to get busy. We started to have kids. And at some point, I can't remember if it was after kid 1 or 2, it wasn't as frequent as it was before we had kids.
Correct.
And so I remember at some point, I was like, well, if you don't ask or if you don't make a move, then that means we're good. And I remember having this conversation and you said men like to be pursued too.
Yeah, that's real.
So take me there, like, because I was not aware of that. Most of the time, like, men are such physical creatures that they're doing all the pursuing. Like they, they're they're trying to make their move, whether it's a hand, and a lot of times it's not, you hear people say like sex starts in the kitchen, and it's not in that form. It's just like, hey, this is my cue, I'm ready to go, and like there's no warm up. So what makes men like so physical? But then also, what is it about certain men who desire to be pursued?
Well, you unpacked a lot there, so I kind of got to go back.
Oh, okay, go back.
I think it is important to lay a good foundation early on, whether that's in the dating phase or an engagement phase. It should definitely be in the pursuit phase where you start to have those conversations around sex, especially if you have those boundaries set up and, you're trying to do it the right way and you probably haven't done it the right way, but you kind of are familiar with your body, which, both of us were. And if you're not, we celebrate and honor that. We aspire that our kids walk that way and not know anything physically before they get married. And I guess y'all conversation can be about, you can talk about the things that, I can't talk about that. We don't know that world. So you got to go
but
to
you can
another.
Talk about things that you probably don't want to experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But that's what I was going to get to. I mean, we don't really know how to speak to that. But I guess you could talk about things that make you feel safe, things that you think you would like. Maybe talk about those things. But you got to go to another podcast to get experience on that. But here, what we would share is, we had a lot of conversations just around ways that we like to be pleased. We talked about things that were absolute no's for us. And so we kind of knew what those boundaries was, but, kind of hearing the other person's desires or fantasies or, it kind of gave something expectant to look towards. And so, though we were looking for that moment just to kind of be able to enjoy one another, it was always in the back of our mind the way that we wanted to please the other person based on what they had expressed.
Right. And it wasn't all about like self-pleasure on either end. Right. It was like, how do I work and serve and please
Yeah,
you.
it was very inquisitive. It was
sex
very
language.
inquisitive. That's how we got to that, because we were both inquiring about the other person.
Right.
Like, what is it that you like or desire or want? And so that inquisitiveness is what led us down those deeper conversations, because a couple of times we were just like, I never thought about that. Let me think about that. Well, I guess I like this. And so, and I think that quest just has never changed. We've kind of kept that up. And into what happened with after, a couple kids is where the babies take over your bed. That's what happens.
Which I don't advise.
And the babies take over they get in there and they be straight blocking. They be in there blocking. And man, the babies get up on, especially during breastfeeding season. They just be like, man, that's my spot. Watch out, especially at this time. But I think what you end up saying to me was, if you don't ask for it, I'm thinking you good. And I'm like, well, men like to be pursued too. Just because I ain't just jumping on you don't mean I don't want it or something like that. And I think what you kind of put me hip to was sex starts in the kitchen. Like, y'all, my wife turned me out. I'm just gonna let everybody know. She put me on game. She put me on game.
I turned you out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that
because I know how to please you.
Okay,
I know how to please you. Like, and you showed me a lot of things. And so, what she taught was that sex begins in the kitchen, and what that really looks like is a woman ain't just trying to just jump right into sex. They have to be warmed up. You got to be primed up. You got to warm it up. And so she showed me long ways to do that. She showed me short, quick ways to do that. So I would say in the course of our marriage, there's very few times where we've just jumped in it.
Right.
And not been primed up in some form or fashion. Now,
some form or fashion.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you can prime that thing all day, and then when you see each other, you just jump right in. It'd be ready to go.
I agree.
But so we've always had that, and so and then what I explained to her was, first of all, I'm in a physical arena in football, so a lot of times I'm exhausted or I'm tired, but it doesn't mean that I'm not physically attracted to you or don't want that from you. And at the end of the day, I could be tired and could be looking for, some intimacy, for an extra release for me to go to sleep or to relax, but I don't have it in me to come at you and pursue. And so I need like a little assistance, or it could be just a subtle touch and all of a sudden I'm in action. And it could be a kiss on the neck, or it could be a whisper in the ear, or, it could be going down to talk to the microphone, or it could be a bunch of different, it could be
you did not say that.
It could be a lot of different things that could provoke, and all of a sudden now I'm back in action. Like, I ain't had practice, I ain't had workouts today, it's just like, dang, where that burst of energy come from? But that's the desire that's there, that is just kind of laying dormant. And don't think, just because I haven't rolled over, touched you, or jumped up, rubbed your butt, or tried to say something slick or come at you, that I'm not desiring it. It's just, I'm tired, but I want it.
Right.
And so it's like, I don't know if all men know how to communicate that.
And I think that's very important. Like, you have to be able to welcome open communication with your spouse. Like, you have to be able to discuss, like, oh, like, this is how this made me feel, or hey, like, this is what I'm thinking or desiring, or hey, like, we tried that, I did not like that. Like, that position makes me, I don't know, my legs jiggle, and I don't like, whatever it is that you either enjoy or don't enjoy. Like, you have to be willing to bring that to the table. So once you told me, hey, like, I like to be pursued too, I'm like, oh, wait, like, that never really crossed my mind. So I had to go and strategize. And so I think you've heard me tell this story before, but in my strategy, I had to be extremely intentional, because it was, I have to plan this, because I'm such a planner, and like with kids, like, I love systems and structure and routine, but I'm like, it can't appear that I'm planning this. And so I would take my calendar for the week And I'd say, hey, on Monday, on Thursday, and on Saturday, these are my non-negotiable days where I have to pursue and I have to make it happen. And did you know that?
I did not know that. I did not know that.
So, but it was just me like trying to speak your love language, attempting to be intentional, and not using the kids or being exhausted as a way out. Like, I'm like, okay, my husband apparently has desires and needs and ways that he wants to be pursued. And now that we've had this conversation, like, I need to be able to fulfill and meet those needs. But what ended up happening? Do you remember what ended up happening?
What?
After I began to pursue you more and more, and you came and you would pursue me as well, you don't remember what happened?
Babies?
Well, we have a lot of babies to show for sure. But I think what happened was somewhere in there, our drive became about the same.
Oh, yeah. We both have an insatiable drive. Because I was just about to say, like, if that was a 3-day thing, I don't know what happened, because that's like 7-day rule now. Like, you come out the cage, we be wrestling that night, y'all. We be wrestling, because I be tired. I be like, I'm trying to go to sleep, and she be like, not tonight, not yet. So I mean, that pursuit thing. So it started as that. It started as that, and just became a constant. Like, I don't even think it's definitely not on paper now.
No, it's definitely not on paper now. But I think once I began to strategize, and once I began to become intentional, and once we began to have even more conversations around it, we found like new ways to go about it. So whether it was, I remember one time like creating an email address and was like, meet me in the guest room. So it was just like all these things around,
you got to do that,
like strategizing how to almost prepare my mind and my body to be able to engage in ways that I wasn't necessarily feeling with being so exhausted with having like little kids who are like tugging on me all the time. And so from there, I think like we just began to spend more time in bed or in other places.
What is it from a woman's perspective? You know, as a guy, he's tired, but he still wants to be pursued. What is it from a woman's perspective when she's tired? Is she tired and just don't want to do it, and she's trying to do it for her husband? Or is it that she's tired, but she still kind of want it, but like it takes so much to get to that point of wanting it? So she's like, that's just making her even more exhausted to think about.
I think it's a little bit of all of that. I think sometimes women are just tired and, you know, they're not feeling it. Or sometimes like women just don't have a high sex drive. Or sometimes I think, and I remember Ludacris said, some say the sex is overrated. They just ain't doing it right. So,
you know what? I was thinking about that. You know, I think it's just people just not doing it right.
And I think a lot of it comes from people not knowing their bodies, people not experiencing things with their partner, not having communication where they're able to experience things and come back to the table and re-strategize, and nobody's offended.
Yeah, you got to come back and re-strategize because you got to regroup. You got to talk about it.
You have to regroup. You have to talk about it.
Can we talk about last night?
No, we can.
I just have a question.
What? Wait, what?
I have a question.
Oh my gosh, Demario.
Because we got to give them real life experience.
What's your question?
That was good last night. That was
Demario,
good. But look,
can we stay? Just.
But we got to give them real life experience.
Okay,
they looking for that.
Okay, what are you asking?
See, people from the flow. They like, we need this. We need this. This is what we're looking for. It's the shaking thing.
What shaking thing?
The tremble. You know when the body do the tremble thing while it's in. And the tremble.
You're about to lose your job. You just got hired.
Listen, don't get. I ain't trying to get fired, y'all. I'm sorry. I was just trying to get that because I want that all the time. How do you create that?
Well, I mean, there are different things that creates that.
Okay.
So sometimes it's how it began.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's what's in the middle.
Okay.
Sometimes it's the anticipation of what's at the end.
Ah,
For women, it's mental. Like a
okay.
lot of it is mental. So everybody's mental capacity or what they desire to hear or feel is extremely different. But you have to be aware of that as their partner.
Okay, so as the partner, what can you do to help play a role in what's going on in somebody else's mind, like in your partner's or your spouse's mind? Hey, let's put this disclaimer out there that we're talking about inside of marriage. We don't know how these things work outside of marriage, and so you could try these things outside of marriage, and it's outside of God's design, and you on your own. You with the enemy, and we do not condone that. It's not that we're judging you. We just saying these instructions are meant to be worked out inside of marriage.
I totally agree. And a person who has condoned that previously before Christ, sex is so much better inside my marriage than it ever was before I was married.
For sure. For sure.
I must
sure.
say.
For sure.
And people are like, it's the same. It's just
No,
sex.
it's not
I'm
the
like,
same.
it's not the same.
It is not the same.
It is definitely
not the same. It is not.
Yeah.
So how does the partner play a role in assisting with the mental? Because I hear you say that a lot. Like a lot of it depends on the woman's mind and where she goes mentally.
Everybody's mind is different. So the woman has to be able to communicate that. But if she doesn't know that, then she needs to study her own mind. She needs to take her own journeys to be able, because if I can't tell you how to please me, I can't just assume you're just going to automatically know.
Right.
Or if I can't tell you what I don't like, I can't just automatically assume that you're going to know, like, oh, she doesn't like that. And you're like, here you go, doing the same thing again. I don't even like this. Well, you ain't told him you didn't like that. So it may feel good to him, but sometimes what feels good to you may not feel good to me. So I need to be able to express and communicate that so you'll know, like, okay, this is a no-go. Like, she didn't like that, or whatever the case may be. Does that make sense?
That does. And I believe in asking questions while it's going on. Like, is that it?
I love talking.
Yeah.
Like, let's try this. Do you like that?
Yeah.
But I mean, but there has to be a level of comfort.
Right.
And again, like some people wear masks inside their marriage, inside their bedroom. And so there has to be like a level of comfort where no one's offended and everybody's trying to serve the other individual. And they're not just concerned about self. Because you just can't get in there and just start going like, I'm just trying to get me. Like,
no,
everybody needs to be got.
Rule number one, it is not about you.
But it becomes fulfilling when
yes, you're gonna take care of you by not thinking about yourself.
Yeah. I totally agree.
The Bible says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit.
Yeah.
But I always consider others as more important than yourself. That's the word. And that applies to sex. It does. If you consider your spouse more important than yourself, it's about my spouse enjoying this optimally, then it has kind of like this counterback type of thing that works.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Because entire marriage, I've always thought about like pleasing you.
Right. Same.
And
Same. So it's like, okay, let me strategize. But from that, it's one of those things too, where you're constantly like going back to the drawing board and not thinking like, oh, it's good during this season of life. Like, this is the end all be all.
Yeah.
Like,
our sex now looks very different than it did on our honeymoon.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. Completely different.
We was wild, just all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, things change. Like, I mean, as you grow, as you mature, I think different things about you change, different things about your needs and your body change. And so, I mean, you just have to be willing to grow your sex life as you're growing, so that everybody is on one accord. Everybody's on one accord. So I guess at what point did you or were you able to identify, like, I think she likes sex just as much as I do, if not more?
Oh, when did I identify that? I think I never even had to think about that. You know, I never felt like I was ever pursuing you and you didn't want to have sex. Like, oh,
Mm.
I never think I had that thought, like, oh, I wish my wife had a bigger sex drive.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, you turned me out. So you put me on game. So I feel like we both enjoyed
Like that
sex.
term.
You know, I feel like we both enjoyed sex, so we just always it's just so natural.
It's natural.
It's always been natural. We've never had a hiccup, so I've never even had to think about that. I do think what I've seen is that when I hear some of the stories when we're sharing with other couples about sex, is you've always had a high awareness of your body and what you like, and you've been able to communicate that.
Mm.
And so it just always allows us to meet each other. And I've always been able to share, and you've always been inquisitive to ask me the same.
Right.
And so that has just allowed us to be on the same page when we go into it, that it's so much of a mental play that we're on the same page.
Yeah. So
Even to the point we talk about everything. We talk about rubbing versus grabbing different parts of the
yes,
body,
rubbing versus grabbing.
and when to rub and when to grab. You know,
Yes.
because sometimes
Sometimes grabbing is appropriate.
it's appropriate and is needed and wanted and desired, and sometimes a rub or a gentle touch
But
is.
you have to be willing to study your partner and read the cues
Mm-hmm.
to know what's needed in certain moments.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know, like, when rubbing is okay, when hugging is gonna get you there. You have to know when it starts with the kids. You have to know it when it starts with cleaning the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's it.
So
That's a big
I mean,
thing.
at some point, like, it's not always
It's not always physical.
it's not always physical. There are other things that spark the mind, that sparks the heart, that sparks the body to make you desire your person.
Yeah, yeah, and it's and in it is so much more spiritual and mental
Yeah.
than physical. Like the physical feels great, but it's the high of emotions and the spiritual oneness and the mental that you want to get into.
Yeah.
There's levels to this.
There are definitely levels to it. And so one of the things that we always talk about when we're talking to other couples is about this 48-hour rule that we have inside of our home, which seems a little extreme for a lot of people. I'm going to tell you. So I remember, I don't know, it's probably maybe year 3. And that was after my strategizing phase, after the kids, I felt like we were in a good, healthy flow. And we were at like a marriage workshop, or I don't know, couples night or something. And there was someone who got up to give some stats. And what she communicated was men need to be released at least every 48 hours. And so that just stuck with me for whatever reason. Out of all the things she said that night, I was like, wait, like, it's almost like a need, whether they pursue you or not, for them to be released at least every 48 hours.
Yes.
And so I took it upon myself to make that something that was mandatory inside of our home.
Yes.
How did you feel about that?
I'm glad we made that mandatory in the home. And it's very rare that we even get to the 48-hour mark.
That's the that's the funny part.
But that's such a good rule, because man, just hearing you say that made me even think about and as a man, I think 80 to 90% of men would agree with me that going outside is like being a wolf and it's a full moon every day. Like when the full moon comes out, the wolf can't do anything but howl. And every day, like when you walk outside, it's lust is waiting on you to jump on you. And that's, you walk to the grocery store, you go to the gym, you turn on your phone, you turn on the TV, you get on a plane, you go anywhere. It's ready to draw your attention, draw your eyes, make you go into a different place. And it's really crazy. It's really, this flesh of ours is wicked. But that's what men are facing, and that's what they up against. And so what is the comeback to that? Like, marriage is a battleground for us to, God gave us a partner for us to go into battle with, right? And so a lot of times husbands are struggling in battle, and I don't know if their spouse is helping them in battle because they're not helping them have those releases frequently. Because what that does is, you know what? All that's going on, I'm not interested in that right now.
Right.
You know, I'm not on that. I'm good. You know, it's like, and it's not like a thought. It's not like, oh, I need to get this release. Oh, I didn't get this release. I'm gonna go out and just let my eyes wander. It's not like that.
Right.
It's this kind of uncontrollable thing. It's like, oh, it's a full moon. You know, I don't need to howl. I'm good.
Right.
Like, I got my howl out at home. And I think that's what that 48-hour rule would help a lot, is because sometimes I can think I'm good and it's been 3-4 days, right? But I'm not good. The body is like, no, I'm used to something happening right around this time. Or I need something to happen right around this time. And so I think what has taken place because of that is this, it's not this insatiable lust that's going on physically.
Yeah, and I think for women, like, it's good to get to a place where you don't feel like you're only doing it because you have to do it, like it's a duty, or you're only doing it because like, all right, like it's dreaded, and it's let's just get this over with. But I think getting to a place where you're able to enjoy it and crave it just as much, if not more, to where like everybody is feeling fulfilled. Everybody's body is in a extremely unique place, but then like you're wanting you wanting to run it back just as much as he's trying to run it back, if not more. And I feel like we created the every 48-hour rule, but most of the time it's some weeks it's every 24 hours. It's daily, but it's just because of, I think, the structure and the bond that we've created and the desire, the way we both desire each other kind of like equally. And it doesn't feel like a duty, but it's almost like a coming together in the oneness that we're both able to enjoy. So then we started to create even more rules around it. Like, oh, every time we travel, like we hit a new bed, like it has to go down.
You gotta break in bed.
You gotta break into bed. So don't invite us to come stay at your house because we just gonna go to the hotel.
That's funny. That's funny. I don't know if we put that policy in people's houses.
No, it's not in people's houses, but we usually don't stay at people's houses.
It's true. Either. We don't stay at people's houses, but Airbnbs, they gonna get the business. So we change them sheets. Oh Lord, we got the Davises coming. Change them sheets.
Now people not gonna accept our Airbnb requests.
We're not super hosts because we don't host, but what is like a super guest? That's usually what we are. We always leave the homes better than we find them.
Yeah, but now they know their bed may be broke.
Their bed may be broke. Baby broke.
So what would you say, I guess, to a female who does not enjoy intimacy with her spouse? Like how do you think she can have some tough conversations with him that could maybe bring them to a place of her desiring to give or enjoy and not just feel like it's a duty?
Well, I'm always cautious as the man trying to talk to the female as in what they should do.
I know you are.
But since my co-host requested me, I would say number one is know thyself. It's gonna help them out so much if they know thyself. Like, I just think about these things, like people can drink every day, people can smoke weed every day, people can get on social media every day, people can watch movies every day or watch a TV show every day. And like, why do people do these things? Like, because they make them feel good. That's why they do them. And the reason why sex happens very often is because it feels good. It's good. It's a really good thing that God created. And if it's not good, something is not working properly. You know, it's like it's not this. I don't want to say like the sex is bad. It's just like something is off. So
Right.
it's like, we come from a little rough. We're not cookie cutter Christians, so I'm gonna just talk a little bit. But
We are
like,
not.
like there's a difference in strong weed and bad weed. Like it don't have the same effect. You get some bad weed, you're not gonna really want to go and get high no more. Like you're gonna probably have a headache. But if you get some good weed, you want like, hey, I want that feeling again. You go back. And like that's what it is
This
with
is pre-Christ, people. These are
pre-Christ,
pre-Christ.
pre-Christ.
Put that disclaimer out there.
but sex is the same way. Like it feels good. And when I'm talking to the woman, I would say, well, what is it that's not feeling good about it, or what's not enjoyable about it? Not like, oh, it was good. Like, no, like it was great. Like great sex. I'm talking about roll eyes in the back of their head. Like it's only like we don't make your eyes roll back in the back of your head. Like that's stronger drugs that I don't know nothing about out there to make your eyes roll in the back of your head. But I could imagine if something that strong, that's how powerful, sex is.
Yes.
And so there's a way to get to that point, that type of ecstasy in sex. And so that's what you should be aspiring to chase.
You should be aspiring to
chase that. And so it's like, I would say, know thyself to try to figure out, okay, well, darn, I don't know if I've ever had
and
that.
My eyes roll in the back of my head, or my toes curl, or my body tremble.
Yeah. Body tremble. Look, don't start that out here.
I can start it.
So, sex starts on the podcast. But, like, know yourself, like, oh, this makes me feel extremely good, when I do this. And I think that there are ways, and that maybe women help women, like ways that you can explore your body on your own to figure that out. And then being able to communicate that to your partner, that this is what I like. And then the partner not being there to take advantage of the situation or to just get what they're looking for, but to make sure that this person feels maximum enjoyment. And that's a big part on the partner, on the male.
Yes.
And a male who's serving and saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that you get to the maximal enjoyment, like where you're good, and then I'll try to get mine. And when that happens, that puts you in a place of being able to receive more.
So I guess too, like I've heard some women say like he just want to dive in, like he just want me to drop him and let him go. Like, what would you tell the male? Like, hey, like
pump your brakes, big fella. Pump your brakes. Pump your brakes, dog. You might get you some tonight, but you ain't gonna be getting none no time soon. Like you creating a bad experience. You creating a bad experience, and the way to get more sex, like, is to create an enjoyable experience. You want it to be an enjoyable experience. I want every time I have sex with you, I want it to be you have a better time than I did. Because the next night you coming back. You coming back, and
feeding for it.
Those texts be like, I've been thinking about that all day.
Nobody asked you to tell all that.
But I mean, that's what you want to create.
Right.
You want to create that. And for the amount of times that spouses are intimate, and focusing on just each other, that's why it's important to keep the proper guardrails up, is you become a perfect fit for each other.
Yeah.
And so that's how God designed us to operate. And, that's where it just becomes magical. And and there's always things to learn and grow. But the males, you have to want to create that environment. And so you have to ask the questions. Like, even if you notice, like, how did you enjoy that? Like, what could have been better? What parts did you enjoy? And really spending time there. Like, priming her up. Warm your lady up. Like, what gets her warmed up to the point where she's wanting it? Like, not what does she like when she's getting it? What gets you to the point of where you're wanting it?
That's big.
And so asking that question, and then
make her want it.
And then when you want it, like, okay, now when we're doing it, what helps you get to your maximum? Like, what brings you to that? And what are all the different ways that do that, like, and help her discover that. And once you start that, once you pop, the fun don't stop.
I like that. So, okay, we have, we're going to really quickly go through a couple of questions that we have. For couples who's not sexually active, how would you start to implement the 48-hour rule and stick with it when it's out of their norm?
Wait, you said not sexually active at all?
Not that sexually
Oh,
active.
not that sexually. Okay,
Yes.
okay. I was about to say, like, listen, that's outside the realm.
Call help. Call help.
So not sexually active, not that sexually
Not that
active.
sexual. So not people
Not
who
yeah.
don't have like
And then how do
extremely
you get to
high
48
sexual,
hours?
and then how do you start to implement the 48-hour rule?
So I think it's let's start with discovery. We need to start with discovery. Like, why are you guys not that sexually active when you have the marriage bed is undefiled and this is a free space? And it's an enjoyable thing. If you know, two people, neither one of them just desire sex like that, which 9 times out of 10, one of the partners is probably desiring to have a lot of sex and just not getting it. So we need to have a discovery. So let's have more conversations around sex and start just experimenting those things that you discuss. Right? One person says they like this as a teaser or warm up. The other person like this as a teaser or warm up. The other person wants to try this. Like, start experimenting with those things. And if you don't like it, like, make sure the person know, like, no, I don't like that. I don't like that.
And don't start with the same teaser and warm up every single time.
Yeah.
We know where you're going with this.
I'm saying just have an ongoing dialogue around sex.
Right.
Not even thinking about the 48-hour rule. Let's just start having sex on a regular.
Okay.
Like,
so I would say maybe like if you're a person who or a couple who has sex like once a week, I would say at least let's go and try twice a week.
Yeah. And you should do your schedule like 3 times a week minimum.
Well, I mean,
3 times a week.
If you're going from once every 2 weeks or once a week, let's let them ease in it.
Unless once every 2 weeks,
babe, I know. I'm just telling you, like some of the conversations.
Yes, I don't want to judge that. I don't want to judge that.
Yeah,
but like, okay, yeah, let's go twice a week.
Let's go at least twice a week, and let's try to be intentional about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, so there's this book I read. Ooh,
and maybe
had to,
and that's gonna be. I think that's gonna be on the woman's side. Yeah. To be extra intentional.
Can you see this title? Can you read that?
Yes, A Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex. Is this what led to your calendar?
Some of it.
Oh.
And I remember after I read this book, like I sent it to a couple of my friends. I sent them like a maid outfit to put on. One of my friends, I think her mother-in-law, and I was like, yikes. But I mean, there are so many different resources out there. So when you're attempting to discover self, like, know that there are resources, like there are books that you can read, there are articles you can read, there are things. I mean, don't hesitate to go to the Lord in prayer. Like I have prayed during sex. I have listened to worship music. I mean, like it's like a sacred ground for sure. So there are so many different things out there that can be implemented to help you get there. The other question is, what's your advice to a couple who's attempting the 48-hour rule and sex becomes more of an obligation or robotic than pleasure?
Stick with the robotic, but let's figure out what's going on that's making it robotic. And it's better to have sex than to not. It's better to have sex than to not.
So it's better to be a robot than to not.
No, I'm not saying that. I don't want, but
I'm just asking.
But we got some good advice, like, and we're going to talk about that in intense fellowship. Like, even when in times of intense fellowship, you know, you kind of want to be like away from each other. It's better to have sex if you're desiring it, because it's just a way that God can operate and draw you together. Like, it's creating more oneness. But I think what needs to happen is dialogue around why it feels robotic. Why does it feel like an obligation? Like, what is going on that this doesn't feel like something we're both wanting to do? Like, we need to have conversations around that. And it's like, if sex is only like a 5 or 6 for you, like, I don't want to say like that's a problem, but if it's not a 5 or 6 for both of you, and you just like, I'm good with it being a 5 or 6, like it just don't
Right.
you don't have to be that thing. Like, and y'all both good there. Okay, y'all can have a conversation and y'all good, and that works for y'all. Like, don't feel pressured by the Davises.
Right.
And what we're positioned. But we're saying that 9 times out of 10, there's a spouse in the household who's really desiring sex, and that could be the male or the female. And we want to be able to help them get to a common ground.
Right.
And so if it feels like an obligation, is there one person that's trying and one person is just fulfilling the obligation? If you're the person that's filling the obligation, talk with your partner and say, hey, this feels like an obligation. I'm not really enjoying it. It feels like a job, and so, like they talk about, like, when you have a job that you love, you never go to work. I enjoy what I do. I've never gone to work a day in my life. I would do it for free. No, I ain't gonna necessarily say I'm gonna do it for free, but I mean, I just get paid to do. I get paid to do something that I love.
That you naturally love.
And so it never feels like an obligation. Like, anybody making me go lift weights, anybody making me go watch film. And so I just think the same with sex, and nobody making you. So when you hear like a 48-hour rule, and it feels like, oh, I just got to do this because I don't want my husband going out there being attacked, like, by the flesh. Like, why does it feel that way? Or my spouse, I know she, kind of wild, so I need to make sure I give her a little bit. Like, why does it feel that way? And not why is it?
So there's a root issue.
Yeah.
So something that
it could be individual. It could be something with what's happening that the person just doesn't understand themselves. But let's get to the bottom of why it feels robotic. Why does it
feels robotic, and how can we get it to a place where it's not as robotic, it's more enjoyable, and I'm experiencing something that's making, again, my body tremble, my toes curl, and my eyes.
We're talking about ecstasy sex. Like, that's what we want. We want ecstasy, because we don't want this just mundane, just sex. And every time you have sex, it's not gonna just be like, oh, just fireworks and ecstasy. But the time that you're being intentional about having sex, and it's not like, oh, we're desiring each other and want to have a release, or you just like, oh, kind of tired, but we're gonna have a little sex.
Right.
But more times than not, it's gonna be ecstasy sex. Like, you've been intentional. Yeah. And so chase that.
And I think, I guess another thing is, like, don't be afraid to try different things, whether it's like different oils, whether it's different.
Oh, you're going into the goodie bag.
Create your goodie bag. And I mean, you do your own research on your own goodie bag of what you may desire. It may be a massage oil, it may be some mints. I mean, there are so many different things out there. But going back to, like, when you are engaging in intimacy with your spouse, like, as long as you're both on one accord, anything goes. I mean, not bringing a third party in. Let me just put that disclaimer.
But you can bring in third-party devices.
Third-party devices, or things that can assist in props. Yes. If you want to swing over your door, or a pole in your bedroom, or like whatever it is that gets you feeling yourself, and then your spouse feeling you, and you guys feeling each other, and you just
create a playground.
And you got that music on, and you're making magic. Right?
Making magic.
So yeah, let's end this here. We should go make some magic. What you think?
I'm down. Just as long as we can run back the tremble.
Oh, let's run the tremble back then. Let's go run the tremble back.
I want to get that every time. I just need to figure out how to get that every time.
Well, we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out. Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for joining us for another episode of Tea with Tamela with my honorary co-host here, Demario Davis, and we will be back soon. Peace. Tea with Tamela. Let's laugh and spread love. Tea with Tamela. You're more than enough. Tea with Tamela. Don't ever give up. Tea with Tamela. Come and fill your cup. Tea with Tamela.